note that we are recording this webinar series. This is the second of the panel discussions that we are having. I think we have 5 panel discussions. Let me just verify that. Yeah, we're going to have 5 different panel discussions. We had the first one last week. That was pipeline operators. This one is oil and gas producers. Next week we'll have chemical vendors, followed by the testing laboratories and other interested SMEs in March, later in March. Um, this is part of the what I've been calling just the inhibitor JIP. It's been active for about 3 years now, and what we're looking to do is bring practices around corrosion inhibitor and other performance chemical testing um, up to a more standardized level. Our dream is to have more ASTM level type tests where we not only have a procedure outlined, but also we understand the expectations of those. Owner operators have indicated this has been a gap. We've been working on this for a couple of years. We crowdsourced what people are generally relying upon for corrosion inhibitor testings in phase one. Phase two, we really started to work on summarizing how tests are being performed, because there's always subtle nuances. People will make adjustments or customizations. And what we wanted to do with this JIP is really learn from those customizations to sort of build towards something which is more standardized. And in phase three, which is active now, we're looking at actually taking, I think, about 8 of these tests from where we are now, which is oftentimes just simple guidelines, kind of not really consensus standards, and certainly nothing that gives you an expectation of the test result. So it makes it hard to compare laboratories. We're bringing those forward and doing some inter-laboratory testing. So really excited at these panel discussions, because while we have had this JIP and there's been a lot of great discussion, we're doing some good work in synthesizing practices. We are now at this sort of, I'll call it the 11th hour of the project. We're talking to people from different sectors of the industry about what they really want to achieve from it. So like I mentioned in the first minute, this is the second of 5 panel discussions. The first one was last week. I had the privilege of being one of the pipeline operators that were offering opinions. This week, we're going to talk to people that have more of an interest in the upstream side. So these are people who companies make money off of actually producing hydrocarbons. Some of these companies may also be midstream operators and refinery operators, but for the purpose of the discussion today, they're putting on their production hat. And next week, as I said, we'll be looking through chemical vendors and who are always interested in selling new products. So they like to have tests that the industry trusts and values so they can market their wares more effectively and with fewer barriers. And we'll be talking to testing laboratories, which are a group of people who owner operators tend to rely on when we want to have uh, third party verified results. And then we'll be talking to the subject matter experts in March 13th. So today I am going to be moderating. I mentioned in the chat here, feel free to, in the chat, put it your name, your company, number of years you've been interested in corrosion inhibitors or been involved in corrosion and integrity management. I see that a lot of people have already recorded their experience on here, so keep it up. Um, I'm with Enbridge Pipelines. I've been doing internal corrosion for about 21 years. I was a CP specialist before that, and I have about 17 years on the outside of the pipe. Pleased to be moderating this. Now, our panelists today, Shankar, I want you to help me out here. We have, I know for sure that we have Bander Dajani, Ayodele Okunula, um, and I believe we have Santosh Kumar. And do we have Anupam or anybody else here?
Yeah, Anupam just joined.
Anupam, great.
Just find it took some time to join because of some issues in the Google Meet.
You'll be with us though for the meeting, Anupam?
Yes, yeah,
Perfect. Okay. So I am going to just let our panelists introduce themselves briefly. Just give yourself a minute or so, and so we can. Most importantly for me, I'd like to hear how to pronounce your name properly, company you work for, and briefly, I guess, how long you've been involved in the JIP, or how much you're interested in it. And we'll start with you, Anupam, because you're not only are you speaking right now, but you also, from a first name alphabetic basis, you come first.
Oh,
Uh,
that's me, right? Oh,
No, Anupam is first.
okay.
Sorry,
AN comes
no
before
problem.
AY.
Okay.
No, no problem. Any of us can do that. Anyway, so my name is Anupam Savapandit. I am working for Shell as a senior materials and corrosion engineer, and Shell's subject matter expert for corrosion inhibition. I have been working in the oil and gas for last 24 years. Earlier, I was also working with Halliburton. So I am interested in this discussion to understand more about the difficulties that others are facing and that 5 points that were noted in the meeting invite. And then maybe at the end, I can tell what we are facing and what we think of about this JIP. Yeah, thank you. We
Great.
are formally not in the JIP, but we would like to join. I mean, participate in these meetings. Yeah,
And
thank you.
we hope you will. So, Ayodele Okunula, could you help me spell your name, pronounce your name properly?
Thanks, Trevor. So it would just suffice to say Ayo Okunla. So that's my first and last name. So it's like saying Timothy or Tim, right? So
Okay.
just the first three letters, Ayo. Yes, my name is Ayo Okunla. I am currently with Saudi Aramco here in Dhahran, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I've been in the corrosion business in the last 22 years. I have a background in electrochemistry. I have been working in the oil and gas business the last 17 years now. I started out with Start Oil, which is now called Equinor. Moved on to Baker Hughes, where I spent the last 11 years, and then back on the operator side with Aramco. And from my perspective, I'm really very excited about this JIP. I actually started to interact with Shankar and Trevor on this JIP while I was still with Baker Hughes before I moved on to Aramco, and it was no surprise at all that when I got here, I found myself back in the JIP with a different um, affiliation. So the collaboration, going on here between vendor companies and operators to come to a common solution on this very unique challenge is really a good one. I'm really hoping that over the next few phases we can come up to the ASTM level type test methodologies like Trevor just said earlier. So that's really my goal here. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Super. Thank you. And Bander.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Bender Dajani. I am working with the Saudi Aramco. I have 25 years experience in the oil and gas industry, especially in the corrosion side. I'm a corrosion specialist in Aramco. Currently, I'm leading the responsible standardization agent in Saudi Aramco for the oil field chemicals. I facilitate and manage and coordinate the oil field chemical between our suppliers and our proponents with the lead scientist in Aramco. And I am really excited and to join this GIB, especially phase 3, because we are looking to develop more standardized method that can help the industry to standardize the test methods although or regardless of the nature of the corrosion inhibitors and variety of corrosion inhibitors that our supplier develop based on the applications.
Super. Thank you, Bender. And
You're welcome.
and last but not least, Santosh, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, greetings everyone. This is A.R. Santosh Kumar. You pronounced it rightly, Santosh. I work with Indian Oil Corporation Limited, and I have over 23 years of experience in this company. I had been a variety of assignments. Like initial 10 years, I was into mostly pipeline construction and maintenance and inspection of some of the storage tanks, oil storage tanks. So that was all into operation maintenance part, you can say. And then the next 10 years into pipeline integrity management, so wherein I was looking after the inline inspection services. So both even the external and internal corrosion aspect also in that. And now for the last 3 years, again, we are into developing inline inspection tools for pipeline inspection. So we have a stream over there. So I am heading that stream particularly to ensure the asset integrity of pipeline asset integrity of Indian Oil Corporation. So that's just a brief of my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Santosh. Okay, so what you can see now on the screen are the 5 questions that we'll be going through today, and we're going to go through them in order. We'll give everybody, all of our panelists, an opportunity to speak. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, but I will be posting the question that is being answered into the chat window. So if you've got your chat window up, you'll be able to see the question and remind yourself what it is. We'll go through the responses in the same order. We ran out of time last week on the meeting that we had. So if somebody has already stated a lot of what you felt, you can feel free to say, well, I agree with everything that person X said and would like to add blah. So I'm going to start off in the order that we were introduced, and then I'll be rotating the order as we go through the questions so everybody can get a chance to speak first. If there are other questions that come up from either the panelists that you'd like to put your hand up or put something in the chat, feel free. That also goes it goes for everybody else who is just participating as a viewer. So with the first question here, now if I can remember how to shut off my screen. The first question is, why do you think test method development or development of standard test methods is important? So this question will go to Anupam first. Please go ahead.
Trevor, you are still sharing. Sorry.
I'm still sharing?
Yes.
Well, and I thought I had this figured out. How about now?
That's fine. Thanks. Sorry. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's fine. Yeah. So in general, standard test methods always helps you to avoid any controversy argument or anything, because that is supposed to be accepted by most because it's a standard. That is one thing. But secondly, I think standard test methods may help the suppliers rather than operators, because most operators are already having their own guidelines or procedures depending on their assets and their requirements. But since the suppliers supply to all operators, probably a standard test method will be more helpful to suppliers than operators, in my view. These are the 2 major things that I can think of. Although I believe it's a challenging thing to have one standard accepted by all. That's quite challenging, I would say, particularly for a seller and a buyer, because both are having two different objectives. I would say. Yeah, that's my point.
Thank you very much. Ayo, would you like to add to the discussion about why you feel development of standard test methods is important?
Absolutely. In addition to what Anupam said, I think it makes the results more acceptable to operators in the sense that when the supplier submits a bid for an asset for corrosion inhibitors, they would have done some testing on their part. And if the testing are standardized across board, uniform, the operator will look at the data and have a lot more confidence. Even if they want to do some internal validation on their part, they would go with that initial confidence that this data is coming from this vendor with a test procedure that we've all agreed on and that I'm familiar with. Now, I'll give you an example. For corrosion inhibitors, we've seen cases where all the vendor did was to do basic bubble tests, collecting LPR data, yet they're submitting a chemical that will be applied in high temperature, high pressure downhole application. I mean, there's no uniformity there at all, night and day.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Vander, your turn.
Yeah, Trevor, thank you very much. I second my colleagues in this in their answers. I think this is a very important question for all of us in the oil and gas industry, especially. Standardizing a test method will support, I think, both the supplier and the operator. For the supplier, they will have a test method, standard this test method that they can follow to propose their candidate chemicals. At the same time, the proponent will get the best-in-class chemical that was screened based on a standard test method. Believe me, the standardizing test method will save more time, money, and effort for both the suppliers and proponent, because based on the nature of the corrosion inhibitors and the target applications in the oil and gas, it's very difficult to establish a database in order to select a corrosion inhibitor for subject or for target application. But when you develop a test method, with time, the oil and gas industry will have the chance to develop a database for the future, so they can quickly identify the required test method that can save time and propose the best-in-class candidate chemical. So it is very important, and we are eager to see the result from phase 3 on the development of the standard test method. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you, Bander. And last but not least, Santosh, what would you like to add to the discussion about why you feel standard test methods is important?
Yeah, so in addition to what other panelists have mentioned, it's something like a similar thing I can say is normalization of the parameters. So this is, if we have a standard, then it is helpful for integrity manager to compare inhibitor performance in different pipelines, and then you can normalize the scores. I mean, it is like have one platform wherein the performance can be compared and normalized. So that is one thing. And secondly, it is good also to convince regulators about the widely accepted methods. I mean, the pipeline operator can easily convince regulators that the internal corrosion control mechanism is in place and effective, we can say. And in a similar way, it is also easy to convince management also that the investment in corrosion inhibitor is worth and that the asset is protected. So yeah, that's it I can add here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, team. As a participant of as a panelist of the previous roundtable, I have to say that the present panelists, the oil and gas producers, you're coming from very much the same place that we are coming from as a midstream pipeline operators. So that's very cool. I'm going to ask just a side question here. So everybody has indicated that there's the standardization will reduce controversy or questions of, I'll say, uncertainty. And we've also indicated that it's going to help suppliers arguably as much or more than it will help the end users because it reduces barriers to marketing new chemistries because the results are more generally acceptable. So we've all kind of come to the same consensus that this data is going to be standardized test methods are going to help us find better chemicals faster and more cheaply and to be able to share data and trust data more. The side question I want to ask is, would anybody actually choose a final chemical or a dosage based on this sort of screening test, or would we still be having to do uh, um, call it product selection and design tests separate from the initial round of testing? So we'll just go through this really quickly. Just say, yes, you agree. Short answers for this part because this is an extra question that I'm throwing in there, and we'll do the same order here. So Anupam, you first.
Now we do a final qualification of our own, apart from vendor screening data, always.
Okay, Ayo?
Oh, absolutely. The initial screening on the vendor side is important, but ultimately in Aramco, we would still do our own internal validation tests.
Okay, Vander?
Yes, as Dr. Ayo mentioned, the screening test is important. However, the dosage rate and all of other main quantities and the selection of the best chemical will be identified during the field trial.
And
Thank you.
Santosh.
Lab tests, yes, we do separately whatever is supplied by the vendor. But then field correlation is where I think we need to look at.
I think you faded.
Sorry. Yeah, that's what I mean. Field correlation is something we need to develop, so that we don't have as of now. Yeah.
Super. Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering the first question about the importance. And everybody was focusing on the positive impacts of the standardized of having standardized test methods. The second question is aimed to sort of do it's almost the inverse. So if we don't develop standard test methods, what do you think are going to be the issues that we will be facing? And we're going to start with the second person now. So that's you, Ayo.
So if this doesn't happen, I think it would or it could disproportionately position the chemical supplier at a disadvantage. You may have the best chemistry available that can get the job done. However, if testing is not unified, if testing is not standardized, um, whatever data you are presenting will not just be taken, at high level trust. It will still have to be tested and tested again And this is just going to cost more money on both sides, more time, and so on and so forth. So I think it speaks for itself here that uh, having something really standardized, industry-wide, is the way to go.
Perfect. Thanks, Ayu. Bander, you're next.
Yeah, standard, as Ayo mentioned, standardizing the method will support even the proponent to compare apple to apple and quickly identify the best chemical based on the qualification test. Thank you.
And so the issues if we don't develop standard test methods is that we're just going to be living a life of more of the same that we have now. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Very succinct, Trevor.
Yeah.
That's just the best way to put it.
Okay. Santosh, do you want to add anything to this list of issues that we have if we don't develop standards?
Yes, quickly, the same thing. One is we cannot have benchmarking. And if there is no benchmarking, then the data is not useful, and it is hardly. Any improvement is not possible. It is very difficult to have any improvement in the process. That's all I can add to it.
I'm just making notes here and pausing. And Anupam, what are your thoughts on this? What are the perils of not developing standards?
I would say something bit different from my experience. I basically do not have, in terms of, basically, I am talking about pipeline, carbon steel corrosion inhibitor. So I do not see a very difficult, a tough thing to qualify a corrosion inhibitor in terms of general corrosion. We stuck always in pitting of carbon steel. Unless we have a standard method or a proper scientific method of assessment of pitting in carbon steel in presence of corrosion inhibitor, other things will help less. If you come up with something which is acceptable to everybody in terms of assessment of pitting or performance of a corrosion inhibitor in terms of pitting prevention, that will be very helpful to us in my experience, and I believe everybody will be happy with that.
And so the problem is that right now we just don't have this data. We don't have the methods to be able to assess pitting in regular carbon steel. Is that correct?
We do have methods, but everybody follows their own way. So I would say most people are agreed in terms of general corrosion and how it is determined in terms of performance of corrosion inhibitors. But if you see the all major operators guidelines and the standard procedures, everybody is following different norms to determine pitting and accept the limit of pitting. I mean, with the standard methods, it also needs to consider what you will accept. So I consider both.
Thank you very much. I'm posting question 3 in the chat. You can see we're on a common theme here. The question 3 is, what do you think are the challenges and opportunities to the development of standard test methods? I know we were pretty excited just to be able to interact with so many different people through phase 1 and phase 2 of the JIP to find out that we were very similar in some of the things we were doing, but we also discovered that some of the things we were doing were slightly different. And the discussion that the JIP promoted allowed us to drill down more into the what were those differences and why did we have those differences? Why were those differences important? So I think the dialogue that we've been able to foster through this JIP has been great, and we're leading into the next phase of developing. So I'm going to go to Bander first with this question. What do you think are the challenges and opportunities to the development of standard test methods?
Yeah, Trevor, very important question, actually. Uh, as you know, and all of our panelists and colleagues know, we have so many applications, and we have different or variety of operating parameters, gas compositions we have to consider for the testing. We have the water geochem that we have to consider in each testing. And in addition, the type of corrosion inhibitor that we need to select, we have water-based or hydrocarbon-based. So these variety or these differences make a challenge to develop a standard test method. And when we talk about the standard test method, we have so many methods that need to be considered. Uh, Unfortunately, some of the methods require very expensive equipment, and not each company can buy or order these expensive equipment to carry on these testing. So they basically they depend, or the proponents and supplier, they depends on the top 3 or 4 important tests just to qualify or assess a new corrosion inhibitor. Thank you, Trevor.
Excellent, Bander. The question goes to you next, Santosh. What do you think are the challenges and opportunities of developing standard test methods?
To me, it's already said by one of the panelists. So the biggest challenge, it seems, is to reach a consensus. And because vendors have vendors, operators, and lab facilities, and also vendors will have will require something like passing criteria kind of a thing. Operators may want a very conservative predictive criteria and all. So this is a bit difficult. And again, as the previous panelist mentioned, so lab facilities also to produce lab facilities to have the testing part. But then if we have this standard in place, then we'll have a standardized outputs and a wider database which can enhance corrosion risk assessment. And it is easier also for us to regulatory compliance for all the pipeline operators. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Santosh. So, Anupam, this question goes to you next.
Yeah, the difficulty would be, challenges would be consensus, because everybody would have different conditions of operations. However, mostly people would try to evaluate things in the lab first, and I believe it is possible if we consider the conditions of say 4 or 5 big operator companies. Probably it will cover everything, and we can probably group those conditions, and possibly we can develop a standard or some methods which can help everybody. That is one thing. Second thing I would like to say about opportunities, I believe we may come up with, if we really put our heart into it, we should be able to come up with shorter and more efficient methods. For example, as Bender said earlier, there are some costly methods. Like do a flow loop test. Can everybody do that? Not even the biggest company would like to do a flow loop test. Can we get rid of that forever? Can we develop something fine, shorter, more efficient? So I think in an attempt to develop a standard, some brilliant mind will come up with such a test or method. That will be the real benefit. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And And Ayo, you are the last person for this question.
Yeah, so just to echo what everyone has said, I agree with the diversity of challenges because it is quite diverse, especially starting with Banda, where he points to some challenges that are unique to different operators, depending on where they are located and where they do business from in terms of operations. Some of those challenges would depend on jurisdiction. And coming up with something that is standardized for everyone, coming up with a one size fits all could really be a tough one. Uh, I also consider uh, the way things are done in Canada, where I've actually spent some time the last 11 years, where lower temperature operations uh, could be an issue, especially when you consider, having chemicals in storage during winter operations. There will be requirements for the chemicals to be winterized, as we call it. And winterization could have an impact on the performance of these chemicals when it comes to testing and qualification, such that the same chemical that has been winterized in a Canadian environment, tested and qualified, could behave differently if the same chemistry were to move to Europe, where the temperatures are, well, less harsh, if you will. So that is a challenge. Opportunities here is that once we have things standardized, it makes it a lot easier, such that even companies that do not want to go the route of investing in expensive equipment, there are third-party testing laboratories that can provide these services based on the agreed standardized methods. It makes it easier for either the operator to go to them to get testing done, or even the supplier companies to go to these third-party testing laboratories and get testing done. I think that way that presents a really good opportunity for everyone. Thank you.
Everybody, I'm just going to point out that everybody, this is consistent with the previous roundtable that we had. Everybody agrees that the hardest thing about consensus standards is that first word, getting consensus. And so I think we all recognize that. And I think what came out in the last panel is that while we have different, ultimately selection tests, the the lack of standardization on even the screening tests makes it a barrier for new products to enter the market. And it might actually even dissuade our chemical vendors from even investing in new products because there's such a barrier. If we had one of the challenges that came up before was we have different companies, laboratories, chemical vendors. They may have their own sacred cow. They've spent a lot of money developing their own standard test. And if this group decides that we want to have a slightly different standard test, they end up creating a break point in their data where it's hard to compare the new data to the old data. So there is barriers. We recognize that. This is why we're having these discussions. But the opportunities are clear. Anupam said, shorter, more efficient tests. Um, uh, Finding the best chemical more quickly from said Santosh. I think that, and I think Bander pointed out that we rely on the same series of tests for the most part, regardless of the application. And Bander said that probably not appropriate because the conditions in the service environment may be so different that the standard test that you're using, even at the front end, is not reflecting that environment. So I think we have kind of reached a consensus here on the challenges and the benefits. The next question that we have, we'll come to your thoughts, Sidine, uh, probably at the very end. But thank you. People that have other questions, feel free to put them in. These will be a record, a part of the record of the meeting. So every comment you put in here is good. And we'll come back to that. So this fourth question is going to go to Santosh first. And the question is looking back from your experience, who has led changes or development in standard test methods in the past up till now? So Santosh, you can answer this question first.
Yeah, very briefly, it is the need of the operators. Because if we have, I mean, in our case, there was a requirement for an offloading arm of offshore pipeline, so wherein the water cut was slightly high, and the asset design life based on the corrosion allowance was when we predicted based on inline inspection corrosion rates, and also that was approaching closer to the design life was approaching shorter. So there was a requirement, and then that is how we felt there is a requirement, and to mimic those conditions, so whatever is the fluid velocity and whatever is the cleanliness of the pipeline, all those conditions were to be mimicked. So based on that, we tried to find out which corrosion inhibitor can best perform in these conditions. So that is one example. I mean, more or less in similar cases also, we try to find out which can mimic the conditions, and then of course that is not so easy, but then yeah, we try to find some correlation. So this is how. So it is primarily the operators' need which drive the changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to the top of the alphabetic list, then Anupam, you're next.
In my experience, both operators and suppliers sometimes try to develop methods depending on what they are facing. For example, I saw suppliers trying to develop method for a precise determination and prediction of pitting protection performance of corrosion inhibitors. Purely that was because they were facing issues to convince customers whether the corrosion inhibitors they are supplying will be able to stop pitting or not. And in severe conditions, when nothing stopped pitting, they tried to prove that it will be at least limited to certain depth. So they had to develop a method. So it would come from the need, I would say. And apart from that, some academics like Ohio University and IFE Norway, they also contributed to develop certain methods, even standards, I would say. So all. Thank you.
Thank you. What would you like to add, Ayo?
From my experience, I've seen the vendor companies or the supplier companies really champion this effort more. Probably mostly because they have come to have the burden, the burden to ensure that their products can sell and can do the job on the operator side of things. But that is not to discount the reality that the operators themselves also want to have, standards. They want to develop capabilities, but I think that burden has been more on the supplier side. It is also not surprising that a lot of the human resources in this area, development of expertise, I think the supplier companies also have had to do more over the years in this area because they are developing the technology anyway to build chemicals, and come up with the best methods to qualify them for application, designing application programs. So I've seen a lot more happen from the vendor side than from the operator side. Thank you.
And Bander, you get last word on this question.
Yeah, I think in addition to what my colleagues just mentioned, I think the time needed to qualify chemicals is also play a major role in the change for the standard. As you know, usually the proponent look for a quick solution to their problems, especially in the emergency cases. And in addition, the cost associated with the evaluation, also the support suppliers and vendor and proponents usually they look for uh, cheaper test methods that can qualify their chemicals. So I think these two main factors play major role in the change in the standards.
When you used the word proponents, you meant owner operators?
The
Yeah.
operators, the
Okay.
operators.
Interesting. So I'm just going to point out a little difference between this group, this panelists versus the last group roundtable panelists, which were basically owner operators of pipelines. In this group, um, we see that a recognition that it's not just the operators identifying a need, but it's in large part suppliers, vendor companies, chemical suppliers, and also laboratories laboratories and other service providers that have been developing standards. So it's interesting that the and I think I would argue that it might come down to the fact that most oil and gas producing companies probably have your own internal labs, and most pipeline companies do not. So there's a recognition from this group, anyways, that everybody plays an important role in this. Last question is, I think, the most exciting. This is where we get to put on our future goggles and say, okay, we're doing this phase one, phase two, phase three of this JIP standardization, and we're going to have a bunch of new methods, or at least a bunch of new standardized conditions that are meaningful for different types of environments. And so, how do we envision implementing the standard test methods in your company once these things have been developed? So we are back to the top of the alphabetical list. This will go to Anupam first.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, sorry, I'm going to type it in here. I wasn't that fast.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you envision implementing
Okay.
standard test methods once they are, I'm going to say, agreed upon? I guess, well, developed is fine.
Yeah. Okay. So once it is developed and published as a standard, I would say it will not be very difficult to align with those methods, because we can always see or show the benefits of using that. We can always assess that standard against the current things that we are using, our internal guidelines. And once we can show or prove point by point why that is better than our guideline, then it is easy to accept it. It's not a problem, because you don't have to convince hundreds of people within the company. You can just need to discuss with the experts and the technical authorities, and then it is possible to convince them with the real valid points. I think that is possible once a good standard is available.
Excellent. And Ao, you're next.
Yeah, so
How do you envision implementing these standards once we get them developed?
well, my hope is to have it well accepted, of course, by everyone across board, both for operators and for vendor companies. However, it should be, or it should be a minimum standard or minimum requirement for qualifying chemicals for a particular application. And I believe also that operators should also, or could, in addition to that minimum requirement, present their unique operating environment, operating challenges to say, well, yes, I agree with this. I like these results. However, I'm having these extra challenges with my asset. Could you please, in addition, qualify it, based on these extra tests, things like that. That's the way I see it going forward. Thank you.
Okay, and Bander?
I think implementing the new standards will mainly depend on the availability of the new equipment, or current equipment can cover all required testing methods. Also, the operator have the ability to purchase these equipment, because, as you know, some of the equipment are expensive and need more time to be uh, requested or to be purchased. But I think after we develop a new standard, we will not make that major changes to the current testing method that we are doing in our laboratories. So mainly the need or the availability of the testing method will make it easy to follow the new standards. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you. And Santosh, you've got the last opportunity for this question. How do you envision implementing the standard test methods?
So what I feel is we need to have we need to create an ecosystem. We need to create awareness among the operators, among our team members, as well as the regulators, and then discuss the importance, and then the same thing, identify labs and build facilities for that. Then only we can meaningfully we can implement the standard test methods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if I were to summarize the four comments that we just received, there's some streamlining in terms of acceptance of test data, faster qualification, but also identifying unique challenges. Vander, you said that there might be some headwinds if new equipment is required. I'm optimistic right now that we're not going to be looking at a bunch of new equipment. It might just be using the equipment that we already have in the same way. Um, and Santosh, I like the idea. I think you've mentioned earlier on having a database of I think it was you. No, it was Bander that said a database. But having an ecosystem, I really like the idea that this is going to be something that will have a more kind of holistic impact on the entire industry. So thank you very much. Um, I'll direct our. We've got time check here. We got 5 minutes left. Um, so Sadine, which company are you with?
Set Laboratories.
Pardon me?
Set Laboratories.
Set Laboratories. Okay. So you mentioned and are you going to be participating in the next session that's going to be testing laboratory?
Yes.
Oh, good, good. Okay. So you've indicated that there's already lots of qualifying tests, a bubble test, RCE, got some longer duration stuff like rotating cage, rotating cylinder. And you're sort of indicating that we have a lot of these things. So from your perspective, do you feel that we already have these test methods standardized, or what's been have there been challenges within that your laboratory sees with existing tests?
Okay, we have all the methods. That's we have about 5 or 6 oil company, all their method for corrosion inhibitor qualification. The biggest difference is the time duration. That's different. If you're looking for pitting, you cannot do a 3-day test. You cannot do a screening test, like a bubble test or something. So the first thing is defining what's precision. That means when you do a test, Is it plus or minus 3 or 4 or 10? What? We're saying precision, but doesn't mean anything. You can repeat the test, you will never get the same thing. And for pitting, that's worse. You do 2 tests, the same condition, the pitting will be different. So how much can we say that's different or the same? We get most of the time the chemical vendors. They do the testing. Let's say an oil company asks the chemical vendors to do some qualification. We get those qualifications from the chemical vendors. We do some testing. They tell us which method they want to use and how to do those tests. After that, the oil company will decide their own test method, and they want to test all the best inhibitor from each chemical vendor. They want to test them with the same method that they decide. So sometimes those methods are different. The chemical vendor might ask for 1 week test, but the oil company at the end, they want a 3 week test. So you get a different result. The other thing is you can start, basically, if you start with a mirror finish coupon, you're not going to get any corrosion. And that one, the surface of the coupon before test is never defined in any standard. The bubbling of CO2 or nitrogen to deaerate the brine is never defined. Some companies ask for 1 hour, some companies ask for 4 hours. We're a testing lab, so whatever they tell us, we do it. But some companies have overnight purging. All those are not in the standard. The standard should define what's important for the test.
Sadine, I'm going to be excited to listen to the chemical testing laboratories webinar in a couple weeks. I'm going to be away, so I'm not going to have a chance to hear you speak live, but it will be recorded. I am going to circle back to our panelists here and just ask for a final word from any of you if you want to add something to the discussion before I thank you for your attendance. And I'm hoping to end in just a minute or two. So let's start at the top again. Anupam, do you have any final comments you'd like to add?
I think we must have a list of all the major companies' guidelines and then identify the differences. And then if we can address those, it should be the first step of developing a standard acceptable to everybody.
Super. Ayo?
Yeah, so I think it's been a very engaging session. I think the 5 questions that we got a chance to engage on today pretty much cover things on a very broad level. I really like that personally. I'm also happy to see that we have a large attendance, different companies here, and hopefully, as we move on to other aspects, we'll get the same level of engagement. Thank you.
I'm sure we will. Bander.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. I think it's very important that we consider all suggestions, recommendations in this webinar series, and the experience that we hear from our SMEs in the development of the new standard test method. So I think it will help us to develop well-standardized test method.
Thank you. And final word to you, Santosh.
Yeah, just one thing. Like we have a cyclic corrosion test method for external corrosion for protective coatings. If we can come up for internal corrosion also a similar method, which is a very good standard for assessing, evaluating the performance of corrosion inhibitors. That's all I can say. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That is our dream. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks to all of our visitors who are listening in. Appreciate that. Next week, we will get to hear from chemical vendors, which I'm sure we will have a slightly different perspective. And I'm not sure if I'm sharing my screen here. I'll try this again. Am I sharing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, next week we'll be having the chemical vendors. I'm sure we'll hear another perspective yet. We'll hear from the testing laboratories on March 4th. And then final word to people. I don't know what a subject matter expert is, but we'll be hearing from them on March 13th. So thanks very much. I want to thank Shankara for having the vision to get this thing started. And sorry for taking an extra couple minutes of your day, everybody. These webinar series will be recorded and available. If you don't know how to reach them, please reach out to Shankara. Thank you very much, and everybody have a good day.
Thank you,
Thank
before you
you.
go. Thank you,
Bye.
Trevor, for
Thank
this
you, everyone.
fantastically done webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shankara.
Thank you.